This story is titled, At My Mom's Birthday Brunch, She Hugged My Brother's Kids and Handed Them Each a $500 gift card. When my son stepped forward, she said, "Not you, we save nice things for our bloodline." My brother laughed. "Yeah, don't make it weird." I stayed quiet, grabbed my son's backpack, and said, "Let's go." That night, I cut off every payment they lived on. By morning, Mom was outside my apartment, screaming, "Hey everyone, before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much." Now let's start the video. My name is Peter. I'm 34 years old. And if there's one thing I've learned in 3 decades of being part of this family, it's that dependability makes you invisible. Not valued, not respected, just invisible. I'm a software engineer. I make decent money, not rich by any measure, but stable, comfortable, the kind of income that lets you help people when they need it. And my family needed it a lot. For the past 8 years, I've been quietly covering my mother's mortgage. Every month, the payment went through automatically, $1,800. She never asked exactly. It started with a single conversation when Dad died, and the life insurance barely covered the funeral. She mentioned she might lose the house. I offered to help temporarily. Temporary became permanent. She stopped mentioning it. I kept paying. Then there were the utilities, the cable and internet bundle she insisted she needed, the cell phone on my family plan, the car insurance I added her to after her rates went up. Small things that added up. Things she never thanked me for because I think she forgot I was the one paying them. My brother Roger is 38. He's always been the golden child, the firstborn, the one who could do no wrong even when he was doing everything wrong. He got the praise when he graduated college 2 years late. He got the party when he finally held a job for more than 6 months. He got the excitement when he had kids. I got the bills. Roger has 2 kids. Olivia is 7. Logan is 5. They're good kids. I'm not angry at them, but watching Mom light up around them while barely looking at me has been my normal for years. I have a son too. Carl is 6 years old. I adopted him when he was 2. His biological parents died in a car accident. They were my closest friends from college. When it happened, there was no other family. I didn't even think twice. Carl needed someone. I became that someone. But to my mother, adoption doesn't count. She never said it directly, not until recently. But I felt it. The way she'd fuss over Roger's kids at every gathering, buying them toys and clothes and treating them like royalty. The way she'd give Carl a distant smile and a pat on the head before moving on to Olivia and Logan. Carl never complained. He's a sweet kid, patient. But I saw it in his eyes sometimes, the confusion, the quiet hurt. I told myself it didn't matter, that love wasn't supposed to be measured or compared, that I was doing the right thing by keeping the family stable, even if they didn't notice, even if the only time my phone rang was when someone needed money or a favor. I thought that was just how families worked. You show up, you help, you stay quiet. Last month, Mom started planning her birthday brunch. She was turning 62. She wanted something special. She picked an expensive restaurant downtown, the kind of place with cloth napkins and waiters who describe every dish like it's a work of art. She made the reservation for 8 people. Her, Roger, his wife Megan, their 2 kids, me and Carl. Then 2 days before the brunch, she called me. She said the reservation was tight on space. She said kids made things chaotic. She asked if I could maybe leave Carl with a babysitter this time, just this once, so things stayed calm. I felt something crack inside me when she said that, but I didn't argue. I just said Carl would be there, that he was part of the family. She sighed, long and frustrated, and said fine. I should have known then. I should have seen what was coming, but I didn't, because I still believed, somewhere deep and stupid, that they'd remember I mattered, that Carl mattered. I was wrong. The restaurant was beautiful, all white tablecloths and soft jazz playing in the background. There were flowers on the table, yellow roses, Mom's favorite. I'd paid for them. I'd also paid for the private dining area she wanted, and the cake, and the wine pairing she insisted on trying. I walked in holding Carl's hand. He was wearing his favorite blue shirt, the one with the little rocket on it. He'd combed his own hair that morning, trying so hard to look nice for Grandma's birthday. Mom was already there, sitting at the head of the table. Roger and Megan were on one side with Olivia and Logan. There were 2 empty chairs on the other side. For us, Carl smiled when he saw everyone. He waved. Mom didn't wave back. We sat down. Carl scooted his chair in and folded his hands on the table like I'd taught him. Polite, respectful. Roger was talking about some promotion at work. Mom was glowing, asking him questions, touching his arm, telling him how proud she was. Megan showed pictures of a vacation they were planning. Another vacation. I wondered briefly who'd be helping pay for that one. The food came. Expensive brunch food, eggs Benedict, smoked salmon, pastries that cost more than a regular meal. Everyone ate, everyone talked, mostly to each other. Carl sat quietly beside me, eating his pancakes, not really part of the conversation. Then Mom stood up. She tapped her glass with a fork, smiling wide. She said she wanted to thank everyone for coming. That family meant everything to her, that she was so blessed. She walked over to Olivia first, pulled her into a hug, a long one, then handed her an envelope. Olivia opened it and squealed. A gift card. Visa. I could see the amount from across the table. $500. Then Mom did the same with Logan. Another hug, another envelope, another $500 gift card. Logan grinned and thanked her. Carl watched. His face was open, hopeful. Mom turned back toward her seat. She didn't look at Carl. Carl stood up slowly. He walked around the table toward her. His steps were small, uncertain. He stopped in front of her and smiled up at her, waiting. Mom looked down at him. Her face shifted. Not angry. Worse. Dismissive. She said, "Not you. We save nice things for our bloodline." The room went silent. I heard the words, but they didn't feel real. Like I was underwater and sound was bending wrong. Carl's smile faded. He stood there, frozen, his little hands at his sides. Roger laughed. Loud. Cutting through the silence. He said, "Yeah, don't make it weird, Carl." Megan giggled. Olivia and Logan just stared. I couldn't breathe. My chest was tight. My hands gripped the edge of the table so hard my knuckles went white. Mom walked back to her seat. She sat down and sipped her wine like nothing happened. Like she hadn't just gutted a 6-year-old in front of everyone. Carl turned and walked back to me. His face was blank. Empty. He didn't cry. That made it worse. He just climbed back into his chair and looked down at his plate. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip the table. I wanted to grab my mother by the shoulders and ask her what the hell was wrong with her. But I didn't. I reached over and touched Carl's shoulder. I said, "Let's go." He nodded. We stood up together. I grabbed his backpack from the floor. Roger said, "Come on, man, don't be dramatic." Mom said, "Peter, sit down. You're overreacting." I didn't answer. I didn't look at them. I just took Carl's hand and walked out. The cool air outside hit my face. Carl squeezed my hand. He said, "I'm sorry, Dad." That broke me. Right there on the sidewalk. I knelt down and hugged him. I told him he had nothing to be sorry for. That he was perfect. That I loved him. He hugged me back, small arms around my neck. We walked to the car in silence. Carl fell asleep on the couch that afternoon. I covered him with a blanket and sat in the chair across from him, staring at nothing. I kept replaying it. Her face, her words, the way she said bloodline like it was some sacred thing that erased everything Carl was, everything I'd tried to build. I thought about all the times I'd excused her behavior, all the little moments I'd swallowed and ignored, the comments about Carl being different, the way she'd forget his birthday but never miss Olivia's or Logan's, the way she'd ask about my job only when she needed money. I'd told myself it was generational, that she didn't understand adoption, that she'd come around but she hadn't, and she wouldn't. Because to her I wasn't a son, I was a resource. And Carl, he wasn't her grandson. He was just some kid I'd taken in, an outsider. Someone not worth a $500 gift card, not worth basic kindness. I felt something shift in me that night, something I didn't have a name for yet. It wasn't anger, not exactly. It was colder than that, clearer. I thought about the mortgage payments, 8 years of them, over $170,000 total. I thought about the utilities, the insurance, the phone bill, the random emergencies where she'd call me at midnight because her car broke down or the fridge stopped working, and I'd just send money without asking questions. I thought about Roger, how he'd laughed, how he'd looked at Carl like he was the problem for expecting to be treated like family. Roger didn't pay for anything. Not the brunch, not Mom's house, not the vacations Megan posted about on social media every other month. He just lived, comfortable, entitled, protected by the fact that he was firstborn and his kids were real grandkids. I opened my laptop. I didn't have a plan yet. I just started looking at numbers, bank accounts, automatic payments, subscriptions, insurance policies, everything I'd been covering for years. I pulled up the mortgage account first. The payment was set to auto-draft in 6 days. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I canceled it. Just like that. One click. Confirmation email. Payment canceled. I moved to the utilities next. Electric, water, gas, internet. All under my name. All auto-paid from my account. I went through each one. Canceled the automatic payments. Set them to require manual approval. The car insurance took longer. I had to call. I told the representative I needed to remove someone from my policy. They asked why. I said it was personal. They processed it. Mom's car would be uninsured in 72 hours. The phone line was easier. I logged into the account, removed her number. She'd get a notification in the morning that her service was disconnected. I sat back. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, from something else. Something that felt like control. I didn't send a message, didn't call, didn't explain. I just let it happen. Because if Carl wasn't part of the family, then neither was I. And if I wasn't family, I didn't owe them anything. Not money, not explanations, not my silence. Carl shifted on the couch. I looked over at him. His face was peaceful in sleep. Innocent. He deserved better than them. Better than me sitting quietly while they treated him like he didn't matter. I closed the laptop. Tomorrow they'd start to notice. I woke up to 17 missed calls. It was 6:47 a.m. My phone was vibrating on the nightstand. I picked it up. All from Mom. 3 voicemails. I didn't listen to them. I got up, made coffee, and checked my email instead. There were automated notices, confirmation that payments had been canceled, confirmation that services would be interrupted, confirmation that everything I'd set in motion last night was real. My phone rang again. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. Carl came into the kitchen rubbing his eyes. He asked if there were pancakes. I made him pancakes. We ate together at the table. He told me about a drawing he wanted to make at school, something with dinosaurs and rockets. I listened. I smiled. I didn't check my phone. At 8:15, Roger called. I answered. He said, "What the hell is your problem?" I took a sip of coffee. I said, "Good morning, Roger." He said Mom's internet wasn't working, that her phone was shut off, that she was freaking out because she couldn't figure out why. I said, "That's unfortunate." He paused. Then he said, "Did you do something?" I didn't answer. He said, "Are you seriously being this petty? Over a birthday brunch?" I felt the cold thing in my chest tighten, sharpen. I said, "I'm not being petty. I'm just not paying for things anymore." Silence on his end. I continued. "I've been covering Mom's mortgage for 8 years, her utilities, her car insurance, her phone. I've been doing that while working full-time and raising a kid she decided isn't worth basic respect." Roger tried to interrupt. I didn't let him. I said, "So no, I'm not paying anymore. If Carl isn't family, then I'm not family, and I don't owe anything to people who aren't family." He sputtered. He said I was being dramatic, that I was punishing Mom for nothing, that Carl should have understood it was just about the bloodline. I hung up. My hands weren't shaking anymore. An hour later, Mom called again. I answered this time. She didn't say hello. She just launched in. Her voice was high, frantic. She said the mortgage company called her, that a payment didn't go through, that there was going to be a late fee. She asked what happened. I said, "I canceled it." She went quiet. Then she said, "Why would you do that?" I said, "Because I'm reallocating my budget. I've decided to invest in my actual family." She said, "I'm your mother." I said, "And Carl is your grandson. But you made it very clear yesterday that he's not part of your bloodline. So I'm just following your logic. She started crying. She said I was being cruel, that she didn't mean it the way it sounded, that she loved me. I said, you have 6 days to figure out the mortgage. After that, it's your problem. She begged. She said she couldn't afford it on her own, that Roger couldn't help, that she'd lose the house. I said, then you should have thought about that before you humiliated my son. I hung up. I sat there in the quiet kitchen. The coffee was cold. Carl was in the living room watching cartoons. His laughter drifted through the doorway. I pulled out a notebook. I started writing down every payment I'd made over the past 8 years. Every bill, every emergency, every time they'd asked and I'd given without question. The number was staggering. Over $200,000, maybe more. I'd never added it up before. Never wanted to see it all in one place. Now I did, and I felt nothing. No regret, no guilt, just clarity. They'd bled me dry while treating me like I was invisible. They'd taken everything I gave and acted like it was owed to them. Not anymore. I picked up my phone. I started making more calls. The pounding on my door started at 9:32 a.m. I was working from home. Carl was at school. I just finished a meeting when the banging started. Loud, aggressive. I looked through the peephole. Mom. She was standing in the hallway, arms crossed, face red. Roger was behind her. I opened the door halfway. I didn't invite them in. Mom said, "Wait, we need to talk." I said, "No, we don't." She pushed past me. Roger followed. I didn't stop them. I just closed the door and stood there, arms at my sides, waiting. Mom turned on me. She said the electric company called her, that her power was getting shut off in 48 hours, that the water bill was overdue, that her car insurance lapsed and she got pulled over that morning and got a ticket for driving uninsured. She said it like I was supposed to care. Roger said, "You can't just do this, Peter. This is insane." I looked at him. I said, "I can." And I did. Mom's voice cracked. She said, "I'm your mother. Doesn't that mean anything to you?" I said, "Does Carl mean anything to you?" She flinched. I continued. "You stood there yesterday and told a 6-year-old that he's not good enough for a gift card. You told him he's not part of your bloodline." And Roger laughed. He told Carl not to make it weird. Roger said, "That's not what happened." I said, "That's exactly what happened, and I'm done pretending it didn't." Mom sat down on my couch. She put her face in her hands. She said she didn't mean it, that it came out wrong, that she was just trying to make things special for Olivia and Logan. I said, "By excluding Carl?" She didn't answer. I walked to the kitchen. I grabbed the notebook I'd been writing in. I brought it back and dropped it on the coffee table in front of her. I said, "That's every payment I've made for you in the past 8 years. Mortgage, utilities, insurance, emergencies, everything." She looked down at it. Her face went pale. I said, "It's over $200,000. Money I gave you because I thought that's what family did. Money you never thanked me for. Money you acted like you were entitled to." Roger picked up the notebook. He flipped through it. His face changed. He said, "You kept track?" I said, "I didn't. I just went back and calculated it yesterday." Mom said, "We didn't ask you to do all that." I laughed. It came out harsh. I said, "You didn't ask. You just expected. And I gave, because I was stupid enough to think it mattered." Roger said, "So, what, you're just cutting us off? Over one mistake?" I looked at him. Really looked at him. I said, "It wasn't one mistake, Roger. It was years. Years of being invisible. Years of being the wallet you call when you need something. Years of watching you get praised for doing the bare minimum while I kept everyone afloat." He didn't respond. I said, "Carl isn't part of your bloodline. Fine. Then I'm not part of your family, and you don't get to have it both ways." Mom stood up. She said, "Please, Peter, I'll apologize. I'll make it right." I said, "Apologize to Carl, not me." She said, "I will. I'll call him. I'll take him out. I'll get him a gift card too." I said, "He doesn't want your gift card. He wanted you to treat him like he mattered, and you didn't." She started crying harder. I walked to the door. I opened it. I said, You have until the end of the month to figure out your bills. After that, I'm done. Roger said, "You're really going to let her lose the house?" I said, "I'm going to let her face the consequences of her choices." They left. Mom was sobbing. Roger was angry. I closed the door and locked it. My hands were steady. I spent the next 3 days building a case. Not for a lawyer, not for a court, just for me, for clarity. I went through 8 years of bank statements. I downloaded every transaction. I organized them into categories: mortgage payments, utility bills, insurance premiums, emergency funds, random requests. I made a spreadsheet: dates, amounts, descriptions. The mortgage alone was over $170,000. The utilities added another 30. Insurance was 15. Emergency requests, the random times Mom called because something broke or she needed cash for something, totaled around $25,000. $240,000. Almost $250,000. I sat back in my chair and stared at the number. That was a down payment on a house. That was Carl's college fund. That was financial security I'd given away to people who couldn't even be kind to my son for 5 minutes. I printed everything. I put it in a folder, a thick one. Then I started looking at what they'd been doing with their own money. Roger's social media was public. I scrolled through it. Vacation photos, Disneyland, Hawaii, a cruise to Alaska, new cars in the driveway, Megan's posts about renovating their kitchen, about the new furniture set they bought, about the private school tuition for Olivia. They weren't struggling. They were thriving. On my dime. Because while I was covering Mom's mortgage, she was giving Roger money, helping with his kids, paying for their activities, spoiling them. I found an old text thread from 2 years ago. Mom asking me to send extra that month because she wanted to help Roger with Olivia's birthday party. I'd sent $1,000 without asking questions. I'd been the safety net that let everyone else live without consequences. I opened my email. I found the message from the mortgage company. The one warning Mom that her account was past due, that late fees were adding up, that they'd start foreclosure proceedings if she didn't catch up within 60 days. I forwarded it to myself, just to keep. Then I made another list. This one was different. It was everything I was going to do with the money I wasn't spending anymore. Carl's college fund, a real one, fully funded, a new savings account for emergencies, our own vacation, just the two of us, maybe Disneyland, maybe somewhere he'd been asking about. I was going to build the life we deserved, without them. My phone buzzed, a text from Roger. It said, "Mom's freaking out. The bank called again. You're really going to do this?" I didn't respond. Another text. "She's your mother, man. Blood is blood." I typed back. "Carl's my blood. You made it clear he's not yours." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No response. I put the phone down. I pulled out another sheet of paper. I started writing a letter, not to them, to myself. I wrote about the brunch, about Carl's face, about the years of feeling invisible, about the money, about the choice I was making now. I wrote that I wasn't doing this out of anger. I was doing it out of love. Love for my son, love for the life we were going to build without people who saw us as less than. I signed it, dated it, put it in the folder with the receipts. Then I locked the folder in my desk drawer. I didn't need to show it to anyone. It was just proof, for me, that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't cruel, that I was finally choosing the right people. Carl came home from school that afternoon. He showed me a drawing he made, a house with 2 stick figures, me and him. The sun was smiling. He said, "That's us, Dad, in our house." I hugged him. I said, "That's exactly right, buddy." He smiled. He ran off to play. I looked at the drawing, at the 2 stick figures holding hands. That was my family, not the people who shared my last name, not the people who called only when they needed something, just us. And that was enough. The collapse happened faster than I expected. Week 1, Mom's power got shut off. She called me crying. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail saying she was sitting in the dark, that she didn't know what to do. Roger called next. He said he tried to help, but his account was tapped out from Olivia's dental bills. He said Mom couldn't stay in a house with no power. He asked if I'd at least turn that back on. I texted back, No. Week 2. The water got shut off. Then the gas. Mom moved in with Roger and Megan. I know because Megan posted about it on Facebook. She made it sound noble, said they were helping family in a tough time. The comments were full of heart emojis. I wondered if she knew Roger had been living rent-free off my payments for years. The mortgage company sent another notice. This one was certified. Mom had 30 days to pay, or they'd start foreclosure. She showed up at my apartment again, this time alone. I opened the door. She looked smaller, tired. She said, "Please." I said, Did you apologize to Carl?" She hesitated. I said, "Did you?" She said, "I tried to call him." I said, "He's 6. He doesn't have a phone. Did you come here? Did you look him in the eye and tell him you were wrong?" She looked down. I said, "That's what I thought." She said, "I can't lose the house, Peter." I said, "You already did. You just don't know it yet." She started to argue. I closed the door. Week 3. Roger called me from a number I didn't recognize. I answered by accident. He said, "You're tearing this family apart." I said, "I'm not doing anything. I just stopped paying your bills." He said, "Mom's a mess. Megan's pissed because we have no privacy anymore. The kids are confused." I said, "Carl was confused when Grandma told him he wasn't good enough. Did you care then?" Silence. I said, "You laughed, Roger." "You looked at my son and laughed." He said, "I didn't mean it like that." I said, "Yeah, you did." I hung up. The foreclosure notice went public. I didn't see it, but Roger's friend who works at the county courthouse did. Word got around. People started asking questions. Cousins I hadn't talked to in years suddenly messaged me. They asked what happened, why I wasn't helping Mom. I didn't explain. I just said it was complicated. Some of them took Mom's side, said I was heartless. That family helps family. A few asked for my side. I sent them the spreadsheet, the receipts, the timeline. Most stopped messaging after that. Week 4, Mom's house officially entered foreclosure. She had 60 days to vacate. Megan called me, not Roger, her. She said, "You know this affects us too, right? We can't afford to keep her here long term." I said, "Then don't." She said, "Where's she supposed to go?" I said, "I don't know. Maybe she should have thought about that before she told my son he wasn't worth a gift card." Megan paused. Then she said, "That was messed up. I'm not defending that, but you're punishing all of us." I said, "No, I'm just not rescuing you anymore." She hung up. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that Roger and Megan were fighting, that the stress of having Mom there was breaking them, that Megan wanted her out but Roger felt guilty. I felt nothing. Carl asked me once why Grandma didn't call anymore. I told him Grandma was going through some grown-up stuff, that it wasn't his fault. He said, "Okay," and went back to playing with his dinosaurs. He didn't seem sad, just indifferent. Maybe that was better. By the end of the month, Mom's phone number stopped working entirely. She'd switched to a prepaid plan. Roger's social media went quiet. No vacation photos, no restaurant check-ins, just silence. I got one final message, from Mom. It came through Facebook Messenger because she didn't have my number anymore. It said, "I'm sorry, I was wrong. Please forgive me." I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed back, "You weren't sorry when it mattered. You were just sorry when it cost you." I blocked her. I blocked Roger. I blocked Megan. I deleted the whole folder of receipts from my computer. I didn't need it anymore. It was over. 3 months later, Carl and I moved. Not far, just to a different part of town, a better school district, a bigger apartment with 2 bedrooms and a balcony that overlooked a park. I used the money I wasn't spending on Mom's mortgage for a down payment on a savings plan, for Carl's future, for ours. We went to Disneyland that summer, just the 2 of us. Carl's face when he saw the castle was worth every penny I'd ever wasted on people who didn't appreciate it. He met characters, rode rides, ate overpriced churros, and didn't care about anything except being happy. I took a picture of him wearing Mickey ears, grinning so wide his eyes crinkled. That picture is on my desk now, right where I used to keep my phone during family emergency calls. I don't get those calls anymore. I heard through the grapevine that Mom moved into a small apartment across town. something she could afford on her own. Roger helped her move, but they're not close anymore. Apparently, the strain of having her live with them damaged things. Megan filed for separation. I don't know if they're divorced yet. I don't ask. Olivia and Logan are growing up. I see pictures sometimes through mutual friends. They look happy. I hope they are. It's not their fault their parents made bad choices. Carl started first grade in the new school. He made friends fast. He's on a soccer team now. He talks about his teammates like they're the most important people in the world. At the first game, I sat in the bleachers alone. No grandparents. No aunts or uncles. Just me. And that was okay, because Carl looked up into the stands and waved at me, and his face was pure joy. After the game, we got ice cream. He told me about a goal he almost made, about how his friend Cameron said he was fast. I listened. I smiled. I didn't think about Mom or Roger or any of them. They were just ghosts now, people I used to know. That night, Carl asked me if I was happy. I said, yeah, buddy, I am. He said, me too. He hugged me. Then he went to brush his teeth. I sat on the couch and looked around the apartment, at the life we'd built, at the peace we'd found. I thought about the brunch, about the moment everything broke, and I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I was just free. Free from the weight of people who only valued me for what I could give them. Free from the guilt of never being enough. Free to build something real with the person who actually mattered. I opened my laptop. I checked Carl's college fund. It was growing, steady, secure. I checked the savings account, the emergency fund I'd started. It was healthy. I looked at the calendar. We had a camping trip planned for next month. Just the two of us. Tents and s'mores and stars. I smiled. This was my family now. Small, simple, whole. I didn't need people who saw me as a wallet. I didn't need people who thought bloodline was more important than love. I just needed this quiet life, this good kid, this peace. Carl came back into the living room in his pajamas. He climbed onto the couch next to me. He leaned his head on my arm. He said, Dad? I said, yeah. He said, I'm glad it's just us. I wrapped my arm around him. I said, me too, buddy. Me too. We sat there in the quiet. The TV was off. The apartment was still. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Not fixing anyone. Not funding anyone. Not invisible. Just present. Just enough. Just home.